Hello, my lovely people, and welcome back again to BOD TV Board. These two videos are on show now, so these two videos too sweet me. Now say I must share them with you now. The first one I'll show now. Now the one we talk say how politics supposed be, how voting supposed be. Nobody want to go carry am come for one person hand, go give the other person because the other person are the highest bidder. Wetin dis oyibo man talk, the thing sweet me. It sweet me well when I say I must share am with una, make una listen. Because this Tinubu thing of a thing, when he receive this certificate of no return, US not support am o. All these gidigba country, they not support o. We never will hear say the Prime Minister for UK don't go congratulate am o. No congratulation, they go anywhere at all. In fact, now they go, they use the leg till they found one congratulate them. And so far, so good. The people who will the hear say he they congratulate them, and people will see be like him. But so far, so good. This video will explain everything. When I mean everything to una. When I can digest them, then una go know una position and how una take back Peter Obi for this court case, make it for win. My people, oh yeah, I'm gonna go watch out.
The primary question I think that should be asked, most of the people here in the audience know this, is why should we care about Nigeria? Why should the United States care about Nigeria? Why should the international community care about Nigeria? What would you say if I told you that there was a country that has arguably the world's oldest democracy with full participation of all of its members? What would you say if I told you that there is a country where a group of people has the oldest written constitution featuring guarantees for individual freedom and due process in the world? What would you say if I told you there was a country that featured full participation of women in its political system, both to vote and to govern? And they started doing this when Europe was in the Dark Ages, in the 800s. What would you say if I told you there was a country that is consistently in the top 10 of oil-producing nations since the 1980s? What would you say if I told you this same country has never been openly antagonistic or antagonistic to the United States, has never been an enemy of the United States, in fact, has never been an enemy of the West? What would you say if I told you this very same country has the greatest number of doctors living in the United States of America per capita than any other nation in the world? More than England, more than Russia, more than Germany. What would you say if I told you that 29% of the immigrants from this country over the age of 25 hold a graduate degree, when you compare that to 11% of the population of the United States over the age of 25 holding a graduate degree? This country has almost 3 times more people holding graduate degrees here in the United States, contributing to our economy and our well-being and our security. What would you say if I told you the same country has 45% of the involvement of its people, the immigrants that live here, the diaspora, in education services, and most are professors at top universities? What would you say if I told you the same country I'm talking about they're entering the medical fields and the technological fields in a rapidly expanding rate? They're increasing the U.S. economy. They are entrepreneurs. They are making America better, building tech companies in the United States to help the people back home. Would anybody be able to guess that country was in Africa? Would anybody be able to guess that country is Nigeria? Because it is. That's Nigeria. So when you say, why Nigeria, it is almost a fool's question. One of the greatest nations that has all of these things going for it, and yet we constantly turn our back on Nigeria. Shouldn't we be favoring this nation? Shouldn't we be more attentive to this nation? Shouldn't we treat this nation, this giant of an entire continent, not of a region or an area, of an entire continent, that stands out as a shining beacon, shouldn't we treat them as especially favored allies of the United States and indeed of the West? Especially given the insecurity in the world today with issues relating to extremism and energy shortages. Don't you think that this is a nation that the world should readily leap to the fore to protect, to ensure the well-being so it can continue on its pathway to greatness? Yeah, we're talking about Nigeria, the largest nation in Africa. It is the wealthiest nation in Africa, and yet it's the poorest country in the world. Nigeria now has more people living below the poverty line than any other nation in the world, which is a remarkable feat, given that there are 234 million people in Nigeria and approximately 1.4 billion people in India, the former dubious leader of world's poverty. How can we let that happen? How can we turn our back? How is that possible? Nigeria is also the site of the largest genocidal slaughter the world has seen since World War II. And yet nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to do anything about it. I am here very proud to be involved with NDECO because NDECO wants to do something about that. Something is very, very, very wrong. And it starts with the ability to choose your leaders in full, open, and fair elections. Nigeria has descended into a kleptocracy. And what that means is theft is the coin of the realm. Not due process, not laws, not fundamental fairness, not the pursuit of happiness, not freedom, not family, not religion, not work, not prosperity, but who can steal the most first and go back and steal some more. And that is something that I believe the Nigerian people can solve on their own, but they're going to have the help. We cannot continue to turn our back on Nigeria. The international ramifications or aspects are very clear. Article 25 of the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, which was adopted in 1966, became law and active in 1976, was adopted by the United States in 1992 and by Nigeria, fully adopted, says that every citizen shall have the right and the opportunity, without any of the distinctions mentioned in Article 2 and without unreasonable restrictions, to take part in the conduct of public affairs directly or through freely chosen representatives, and to vote. This treaty signed by Nigeria and by the United States, and by the way, in the United States, when we sign a treaty, it becomes the law of the land with certain restrictions. So the United States has to comply with this. Nigeria has to comply with this international edict. It is as fundamental as any human right. And let me quote the UN, the Covenant 25 says, to vote and to be elected at genuine periodic elections, which shall be by universal and equal suffrage and shall be held by secret ballot, guaranteeing the free expression of the will of the electors. That's why this is important. We have a violation of international law that rises to a violation of human rights, and we all know the human rights violations that follow. And it's by a nation that we should hold in special favor, we should hold more closely, that we should take better care of. The fact of the matter is that what was supposed to happen, and again, we are not partisan, NDECO is not partisan, but it appears as though the process, and that's what nations, that's what a democracy is. That's the greatness of America, is the process. It's not the people, it's the process. It's not the result, it's the process. How our government works, how our elections work. And the process of this election in the 2023 Nigerian presidential elections appears to be fundamentally flawed. We believe, NDECO believes, that the February 25 to 26, 2023 election, the results, the hasty announcement of the results, are fundamentally at odds with the Nigerian election laws. And as Dr. Ogebi said very clearly, they didn't just violate rules, they violated their own laws. Inec glorified their efforts to make this the cleanest, the purest, the most transparent and fair election in Nigerian history, in African history. And yet They violated every single fundamental tenet in every single law. They instituted the bimodal voter accreditation system. You've heard about that, the BVAS. All that is, make no mistake about it, there's a lot on the internet that seems to, people want to believe that when you voted with the BVAS that recorded your vote and your vote was sent somewhere and it went to a server and it was tabulated and somehow Tinubu or the APC were able to hijack that electronic signal. That's not what happened. It was more pernicious than that. It was more old-fashioned than that. All the BVAS does was gave you two modes of identification, both your card, you put your card, your voting card, your PVC in, and it also did your fingerprint and face identification. But it failed. And the reason BVAS was important is so that people couldn't vote more than once. Vote early, vote often. The reason it's important is so people could not vote that had fake cards. And on the issue of the PVC cards, Inec announced, this is Inec themselves, said that there were 87.2 million PVC cards collected. That was out of 93 million registered voters. So approximately 6 million people were registered. They just didn't bother to get their voting card. No one knows why. It just happens. But what's fascinating is, if you consider it true that 87.2 million people had PVC voting cards and could have voted, the declared winner of this election received 8.7 million votes. Now, out of 87 million, the math's not real hard. That means that Mr. Tinubu got 10% of the vote. He will be ruling the wealthiest economy in Africa with a mandate of 10% of the population. That's extraordinary. Something is seriously wrong. Something is seriously wrong. Additionally, we believe that what has to happen and why we're here today, and Nadeko is leading the charge, we believe that Inec has to prove itself. It has to prove the results it announced were true and were real. There are 176,600 polling stations. That's a lot of polling stations. INEC's rules required each polling station to collect the votes, count the votes, and they do it the old-fashioned way. They get the paper votes, they count them. They put them in stacks for each of the primary candidates. They were to gather those results, publish the local results, and then transmit the results, and ultimately they would go to Abuja and be certified. Well, what happened was they published some of the results early on, and then they took them down. And so what they have is something that looks a little bit like this, scribbling, when it used to look like this, where it was written. Someone didn't like the results. That's what appears to have happened. Dr. Ogebe observed it happening. So what we have is vote rigging, vote buying, and bribery. So despite INEC's efforts, nothing good happened. And we're back to the same old thing, the same old efforts. So what do we do? What do we do in the United States? What do we do as members of the diaspora? What do we do as international attorneys or international law folks? What do we do to ensure democracy can thrive? That the promise of 1960 can become true again, hopefully. Well, we are asking that INEC throw open the curtains and let the full light of truth come in.
Inec, you yeah?
To prove the transparency and the veracity of the results they've announced. If the results are true, they should be able to prove it. It is absolutely not extraordinary to ask them to prove it. Show me your math. We've all gone to school. Show me your math. You've got a number. Show me how you got to that number. Prove what you did. There can be no debate that the initial investigations indicate that they were savaged. The rules were savaged. The rights of the electorate were savaged. It was polluted by blatant and widespread corruption. As Dr. Lloyd said, the four horsemen of democracy's doom, bribery, intimidation, insecurity, and vote rigging, appeared to trot and run roughshod all over the nation. They were harnessed to skew the results. We, NADECO, call upon the people of Nigeria to act peacefully, but to demand that proof be provided to them, that INEC prove the results they've announced. We also call upon the international community to join together with the Nigerian judiciary in a concerted effort to condemn and set aside the hastily announced results and instead proceed with the solemn seriousness this deserves. Again, one of the world's great nations is at peril here, continues to be at peril here. We need to make sure we don't continue to turn our back on Nigeria. And what we're asking for is very simple. Prove to us, prove, NADECO says prove to us that if there is a Nigeria and there is a democracy in Nigeria, that it was arrived at lawfully and in accordance with the rule of law.
I'm not satisfied because I saw too many irregularities. And please, all the information I'm using is in the public space. The information I'm using is available from INEC website in terms of the IREV and the result sheets versus what in some cases the parties and the polling agents insisting is the result. And I will give a few examples. You know, if you show Exhibit 2A or something like that, and because it's not, and don't forget that there are whistleblowers. A polling agent might be 22 years old. If you bring out the wrong results, he starts screaming, begging everybody to come and look at what he has put up or what you have put up. Yes, okay. The exhibit 2A shows you somebody from Rivers State. Just an example, I could have gone anywhere, but Rivers State is also my home state, so why not? So people there have my telephone number, they have my contact details, they have a right to scream and say, look, Oga, come and see what's going on here. So what do you see there? A young polling agent is screaming. In my polling unit in Rivers State, he says, Labour Party got 223 votes. APC got 8 votes. Let's just stop there. The other parties got very little. So I repeat, Exhibit 2A, the polling agent is screaming. Labour Party got 223 votes. APC got 8 votes. When you go to Exhibit 2B, that is published by INEC on the IREV. Now, it's possible this polling agent is wrong, but the results are reversed in Rivers State, where he says Labour Party got 223. INEC has uploaded APC 223. Where he says APC got 8, INEC has uploaded for APC 223. Now let me explain something about BVAS. So some people don't know. The one important thing BVAS does is that all the votes must add up. So you must always make a minimum of 2 changes. If you make only 1 change, it will not add up, unless it was somebody that scored 0. And even then, if you change 0 to 0, only then will you have the same result. But you must make 2 changes. So this polling agent is screaming that they reversed the results. Labour Party is saying got 223, APC got 8. INEC is showing the exact opposite between those 2 parties. So the votes are balanced. And when you look at the image that INEC actually uploaded on IREV, you can see on the right-hand side where they put where they put the words. You can see that the words have been altered, TPEX has been used,